After a frustrating loss to the Florida Panthers over the weekend, the Wild got a bounce-back win last night against Edmonton thanks to two key returns to the lineup. We recap the Edmonton game as well as some standout performances today on Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked On Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we recap a loss to the Panthers and a win for the Wild over the Edmonton Oilers, and some key returns for the Wild in the lineup, as well as looking ahead to what is coming up for a busy week in Canada for the Wild. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, your veteran captain, leading you through another Minnesota Wild season. And we're joined on a Victory Monday by Alex Micheletti. So a Victory Micheletti Monday. Alex, how are things going?
Good. Yeah, it was a interesting weekend for the Wild, and played some pretty good teams. Took a tough loss against Florida, but nice to rebound against Edmonton and get some momentum on this Canadian road trip. Because it's definitely going to get tougher in the later part of the week. Ottawa's not a very good team, but the games versus Toronto and Calgary will definitely be really tough, especially with Calgary on a 9-game winning streak. But they just ended a 5-game winning streak against Edmonton too. So it's gonna be a fun week here for sure.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting test for the Wild, just like Saturday in starting there, and it was an interesting game for the Wild because, it started off, they really had good energy and good attack against the Panthers, but then Florida did, as Florida does, and they took control of the game, and they beat the Wild kind of at their own game with just amazing 5-on-5 play. And I think it left a lot of fans frustrated because, we want to get to that level that the Panthers have been at, it seems like, all season. And, I think it just was a good learning experience for the Wild to, if we're going to be one of those teams, one of those upper level teams, we got to play that way for an entire game. And the Wild are capable of it. They just, they weren't able to do that against the Panthers.
Yeah. I mean, some of the goals, just, poor communication, and just, a little bit poor goaltending by Cam too. He had been playing really well before that. Florida's got some of the best forwards in the league. Jonathan Huberdeau's, he might end up being the MVP. He just is on a roll. He had a couple more points against Chicago today too, and just Barkov's amazing, and so it's a beast of a squad, and nice to this team. They always respond to when they have a rough game, and so it was really fun to see last night. How they played against Edmonton for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about the response, the resiliency of this team, and we saw it on full display because you see a couple of changes made in the lineup, and Nick Bjugstad comes in, and the fourth line, which hadn't been performing as well recently, has one of their best games of the season. Calen Addison in for Jordy Ben on defense, and the defense looks much better. So, like you talked about, the team responded, and really jumped Edmonton. Holy cow. That was a crazy start with 4 goals in the first period and just a disastrous start for the Oilers. Again, showing that they really don't have the kind of goaltending that you need to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Winnipeg Jets, for I mentioned it, before they played Edmonton, that Edmonton was going to be on a back-to-back, so that helped the Wild tremendously, because Winnipeg's one of the most physical teams in the league, and so you could really tell that the Oilers were pretty gassed out there in the first period, and making just critical turnovers, and Mike Smith is very Devin Dubnyk like. He can give up some head scratching goals, and so that was definitely the case for him, and to get him chased early was just tremendous job by the Wild, and they did not let their foot off the gas pedal. I mentioned that on Twitter too, because Draisaitl and McDavid never give up, and so they were even playing McDavid late in the game there, and it just they just are relentless. So it was nice defensive effort to have them be combined for only 1 assist. Just you don't see that very often, and you'll probably see them play Tampa Bay and see those guys go for 6 or 7 points. So job well done by Calen Addison stepping into the lineup. I mentioned on Twitter too that I think he deserves to stay in the lineup. And we'll see what that happens. But just great effort by the entire crew.
Very, very much a great effort by the Wild, and another great start for Capo. It's going to be interesting to see how the Wild play the goalie situation on this road trip, because do you keep going with Capo? Do you give Talbot another opportunity to kind of try to get a rebound against Ottawa? I don't know which way I would go, but I think the way I would tend to lean is to just keep going with Capo.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Especially against Ottawa, I don't think that'll be a tough one for him, and just keep riding the hot hand. I think is the way to go. And we'll see against Toronto and Calgary. I don't know if you want him starting all 4 of those, but just if he's winning, stay with him.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Well, let's dive a little further into this game, because I want to talk about one of the unsung heroes of the game, that of course being Mr. Nick Bjugstad, who got a rare opportunity to center the 4th line in his return to action. We'll talk about that and a few more of the key details in the Wild's throttling of the Edmonton Oilers. More of that coming up here on Locked On Wild after this. It is the month of February, which means a lot of your New Year's resolutions just get thrown right out the window. But if you are still committed to eating better or looking better, Built Bar is here to help. Built Bar also has a new variety of their bars, the Puffs. If you haven't tried them yet, you're missing out on one of the best Built Bars around. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they are a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. And just like other Built Bars, most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You can compare that with your typical candy bar, which has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. If you are looking for a great treat to help you stay fit, head to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. Again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Once you are done listening to today's show, make sure to head over to Olympic Hockey Daily, presented by the Locked On NHL podcast, a bonus podcast covering all the action in Beijing. You can find it on the Locked On NHL podcast feed, and it is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Continuing to recap the Wild's big win over the Edmonton Oilers. Alex, we welcomed Nick Bjugstad back into the lineup. And really interesting because him coming back in meant that Nico Sturm was a healthy scratch for the Wild, which I get because, as we alluded to, fourth line wasn't producing at the same level that it had, at the beginning of the season. And so I think this is just another example of Dean Evason kind of trying to send a little bit of a friendly nudge and wake-up call. Are we going to see Bjugstad get more opportunities to center this line, or will Sturm be the center and Bjugstad will be worked? How do you see this situation with the fourth line playing out over the next few games, the next few weeks?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, you can't take out Duhaime, and you can't take out Dewar. Dewar's been playing. I mean, he's ran with his opportunity. It's really fun to see him and how he's developed. And yeah, every time he plays, he's making an impact. And Duhaime with his physicality, and you just can't take him out. And so, Bjugstad deserved to get back in the lineup. He got an injury without not his fault at all. And so, Dean, just, after a loss, shake things up a little bit. And, and Bjugstad ran with his opportunity. So I think you keep him in there against Ottawa, and we'll see. You just, take it by game basis. I don't think Nico was doing anything wrong either, but, yeah, it's those tough lineup decisions, and they're going to have a tough call what to do with Calen Addison here too. And so, but that's why Dean's in charge. He's a great coach, and he's been pushing all the right buttons. And so we'll see. But I after the way Bjugstad played tonight, how do you not keep him in the lineup? Especially on that first goal. Where he was amazing in the offensive zone and went behind the net and fed it out front, and it was just a great play. He was very noticeable out there with his size is huge too. I mean, he's about the same size as, or a little bit bigger than Nico, but Nico's a big guy too. But I liked the way he was playing defensively too, and you gotta keep him in.
Of course, the Wild could play one or the other, and we wouldn't know because they're identical twins.
Right.
So
exactly.
They could say, no, Bjugstad is in, and it's actually Sturm, and I'd be like,
yeah, what a Halloween costume that was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I saw it on Twitter, and so I wanted to throw it out here in just kind of recapping this game. There seems to be a little bit of concern with Ryan Hartman's performance recently. And, you look at the numbers, he's got 3 points in February. Are we concerned about Hartman's production starting to slip a little bit, or is it just him taking a little bit of a backseat to Kaprizov and Zuccarello, who are just continuing to be on an absolute heater here over the whole season?
Yeah, I mean, those two, Zuccarello and Kaprizov, they just have instant chemistry. They seem to be best friends off the ice. They calls him Zuki, and so, Ryan Hartman really isn't your typical protocol, number one center. I think he's just playing way above his level right now, and you can't break up that line. They have pretty good chemistry all together, and so. Is it a concern? Not really when that line continues to score. And so that's all that matters. Come playoff time, if that line isn't scoring, then of course it becomes a major issue because you need that third guy to step up definitely in playoff time. But they're continuing to win at a good pace, and so I don't think you break up that line at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we saw a dip in scoring for Kaprizov and Zuccarello, then at that point you can kind of get a little bit concerned. But this is just more along the lines of pointing out that just consider Kaprizov the center for that line because of how much he's doing with the puck And, he's scoring. Zuccarello is scoring. That line is still continuing to be super productive. So until those guys' numbers start to drop, that's when I might have some alarm bells go off, but not before.
He made a good play on Zuccarello's last goal too. I like that. And, Kulikov, great effort to get the puck out of the zone there too. So just, keep that line intact going forward here.
I agree. Final thing that I wanted to just kind of go back over, because we get a chance to see it all the time. And, you look at the numbers. Connor McDavid, 3 shots in 20 minutes, and Leon Draisaitl had an assist and 4 shots in 19 minutes. Whether it be the combination of the Grief line, Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, it is really refreshing to see players of the McDavid stature get locked down by a combination of great defense. And, hat tip to Calen Addison for coming in and helping shore that up after a couple of yikes games over the last 2.
Yeah, you could tell Draisaitl was frustrated. He took that late penalty on Calen Addison, and so it's awesome seeing some of the I considered McDavid and Draisaitl 1-2 in the league as for the top players in this. Mm-hmm. In this entire league. And the Grief line was just dominant against Draisaitl's line. They really shut them down, really frustrated Vander Kane too. Talk about a polarizing guy out there. And so, and Jonas Brodin was just an absolute rock star. He helped, he took a really nice block on that helped spurn Fiala's first goal, where he just sniped it past Mike Smith, and he just did everything tonight. Jared Spurgeon was phenomenal too, and he like we mentioned earlier in the episode, you don't see this too often where they're held to one or no points for McDavid. You just never see that, and so great job. The team did give up another power play goal, but that's one of the top power plays in the league when they're humming. And so they did a nice job to stay out of the box for the most part. And it's just a great team win all around.
Yeah, 100%. And we got more of the chemistry on the Boldy Fiala line.
Yes,
Fiala 2 goals. He could have maybe had 4 with how he played. Boldy scored, so just a great win, and hopefully the start to a great week, because the week gets progressively more difficult as we go, and we'll look at the week ahead for the Minnesota Wild to finish today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Football might be over for the season, but basketball is in full swing for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC, all the way to Olympic coverage and information. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. You can find all of it at BetOnline, where the game starts. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. A victory Micheletti Monday here on Locked on Wild. And just finishing off today's episode with a look at the schedule, which features at Ottawa on Tuesday, at Toronto on Thursday, and at Calgary on Saturday. And Alex, one of the, if not the hottest team in the NHL right now, the Calgary Flames, who made the move to acquire Tyler Toffoli to shore things up, and they have just taken off from there. And I guess fitting that I'm wearing Flames colors right now. But it's going to be a fun matchup, because that is a just dominant Flames team right now. But the Wild have showed that they can contend with those types of teams. They just have to be on that A game from puck drop to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to sign Jacob Markstrom, and that Vancouver really misses him in that for sure. They just gave up 7 last night to Anaheim. So, he's been one of the best goalies in the league. He should be up there for the Vezina. And I mentioned it last night too. I think Calgary's got the best line in hockey going right now with Elias Lindholm, who scored 8 goals in the past 7 games on a line. He's centering it with Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau. And so when they are out there, they are extremely tough to stop. And Tkachuk brings the physical, just craziness out there, chaos. And Johnny Gaudreau is one of the most skilled forwards in the game. And so that line's gonna be tough to stop. We'll want Jonas Brodin out there as much as possible against that line for sure. He continues to shut down some of the top players in the league, and so look forward to that matchup, and hope the Grief line is on again against them as well too.
Yeah, not to that's looking ahead to the end of the week. The Wild will also have to try to contend with Austin Matthews and the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are going to be hungry for revenge after what the Wild did to them at the XL Energy Center earlier this season, which they got out to that 3-0 lead. And, I think I tweeted in all caps that it was a slobber knocker, and then the Leafs make the comeback, but the Wild get the win in, I believe, in the shootout.
Yep.
And so Toronto's going to be hungry to avenge that loss. And, they showed how dominant of a team they can be. And you talk about good goaltending. I mean, Jack Campbell having a tremendous season as well. So that Toronto team is going to be a very tough one to contend with on the road as well.
Yep. Yeah, they're having another phenomenal season, and Mitch Marner is starting to play a lot better, and they have an absolute stud in the back there in Morgan Riley, and so it should be a really fun matchup. They have a Minnesota boy on that team too, and Justin Hall, who's on their D as well, and so they have so much firepower too. They have a Calder trophy candidate too, and Michael Bunting, who they were able to get from Arizona, and they just made a trade too for another defenseman from Arizona, which was kind of interesting to pick a guy from one of the worst teams in the league. So we'll see if that works out. But it's going to be an interesting one, and got to shut down William Nylander too, who always seems to have big games. So definitely looking forward to that matchup.
And the other one, as we talked about, is the Ottawa Senators. 18, 26, and 5 on the season, and the Wilds played them earlier in the year, and we're actually behind by I believe a couple of goals, and ended up making the comeback to pull off the win there. But regardless of their record, still have some good skaters, including Josh Norris. So obviously, the Senators not a team that can be taken lightly, and it would be nice. And we've seen it this year, a team that you should beat, and the Wild usually do pretty good in those games. So hopefully a sign that they can keep this week rolling by coming away with a win on Tuesday.
Yeah, we talked about Matthew Tkachuk. Their captain, Brady Tkachuk, is also likes to get in the muck and cause chaos. And so, they have a lot of young guys. They lost today against the Rangers, and so they'll be coming in mad off that after that game. And so it should be an interesting one. They're missing one of their best players in Drake Batherson too, who was taken out by Aaron Dell against Buffalo, and Buffalo basically just got rid of him after he did what he did to Drake. So that was unfortunate for that team, and so they look to be making some moves at the deadline to selling off some assets, and their GM has been watching the Wild, so who knows what that means? I don't think this team needs a Tierney, but
No.
that always seems to be the rumor. And the Sens think they could get Kevin Fiala for nothing, and that's not happening. Sorry, Ottawa Senators. Facebook and Twitter pages and any social media that they have discussions on.
Yeah, I saw suggested that Tierney would be an upgrade over Fiala, and I was like, what?
What is going on? Yeah.
I don't think that's accurate, but
no, not a chance.
Yeah, it's going to be a hectic week for the Wild, but as we've learned with this team, they are a resilient bunch, and they can handle adversity as they did against Edmonton. And so it'll be fascinating to see how this week plays out because, 3 winnable games, but the Wild are going to have to be on their A game for all of them, and we'll see if they are.
Yes. It's nice to get that first one, especially, and boys will be a little fired up going into Ottawa, and if they can make it 2-0 to begin that trip, it just makes things a lot easier for Toronto, especially because that building is going to be rocking. They have a great fan base, a proud fan base, and so they bring the star power, and Austin Matthews, just a fan favorite for every fan base. It's fun to watch him play, and hopefully Leonis can shut him down here, and we'll see if Capo gets that game because that would be eye opening for sure. They tend to play Cam against the tougher opponents, but if Capo gets it, that's going to be really, really eye opening, and we'll see if that would continue against Calgary if he beats Toronto.
Yeah, it's going to be worth watching, and we of course will. But should be a fun week regardless for your favorite team, the Minnesota Wild. That is going to wrap it up for today's episode. So now that your first listen of the day is done, make sure you swing over to the Locked On NHL podcast to get the latest on your favorite NHL teams from your favorite Locked On NHL hosts. Make sure as well to follow Locked On Wild wherever you listen to podcasts, anytime, any day, any place. Make sure to stay up to date with us as well on social media. Some big things planned in March, so stay tuned for that. We'll have a big reveal of what's going on with that coming soon. And just stay as up to date as possible on the Minnesota Wild, because if there's any big news that breaks or any pucks that drop in the state of hockey, Locked On Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.